shortly. My current focus is much more on digital content and sort of emerging, quote-unquote, emerging technologies, VR, AR, etc. But my background is in film and television. It's still very near and dear to my heart. Film and TV are just another way to get your message, get your story out. Whether you are primarily creating your content for digital, or primarily creating your content with an idea that it will run long form on television, I think the fundamental sort of art intention is the same, which is to connect with an audience. I think there's a really great opportunity now, particularly when we're looking at the region, to get your story told in a way that we haven't had before. So even if we go back 10 years, or even shorter, 5 years, primarily your focus, if you wanted to tell a story, would have been on film festivals. If you were looking to make feature film, getting limited theatrical runs in cinemas, and if you wanted to make television, well, you had a limited number of broadcasters that were available across the region. The opportunity was still there, but it was a much smaller pool, a much smaller number of positions for people to fill. And there was a real burgeoning creative community, and I think that in some cases and sometimes not enough people got the opportunities perhaps that they deserved or wanted. With digital content, you have almost the opposite issue, where literally anybody who has a phone can become a content creator, can tell their story, can share their views, can reach a potentially massive audience, not just in the region but globally. And that presents its own challenges, but that also means that really today, if you have a story to tell, if you have something that you want to share, if you want to connect to an audience, you can do that, and you don't really have an excuse the way you did before. So I think that's really, really important, and that's something we've seen in terms of a shift. But also in terms of traditional filmmaking, I think maybe I'll turn over to my colleague Ali. He is one of the, great independent film success stories here in the UAE. There aren't too many of those, but Hajj 101 was something you did essentially on your own.
Thank you, Omar. My name is Ali Marzooqi. I am independent filmmaker or producer in the UAE. I think the one of most challenge here in the UAE that the audience in the UAE market is very limited. And as you know, there is a lot of international movies come from Hollywood, Bollywood, and some of Arab region. They are very advanced industry, and to compete such industry, we need a lot of effort to be done. That's why we try, when we produce our own movies, to select our target very carefully. And we found that the local content, it can work very successfully in UAE, but you have also to try to attract our audience, especially teenager. So we try when we did the Hajj 101, because a lot of teenagers nowadays like the drift, the car racing, those such stories which can attract those target. So we success in the first movie, and we because of get a lot of good response from audience, we also decide to do part 2, and part 2 also had a good success. And we try now to go for the next level. We try to work with different resources here present in UAE, and we try to go the next level when we do Hajj 3. So this is a good opportunity to have me here today to talk to you, to talk to other people, and try to get more ideas about this the industry and about the content in the UAE.
Thank you, Ali. Indeed, you are one of the success stories. What's the impression from a foreigner in Dubai doing the same activity, the same work, Rodrigo?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Rodrigo Kircher. See, from my perspective, it's the platform is there, as we know, but let's say, if you compare it to Europe or whatsoever, actually this kind of environment is kind of missing. So how you meet your sponsor to make your film, where's the producer that actually has the money and understands how that works, that you might need a head sponsor to get your whole concept running, that you even might get a license then to go to a Hollywood distribution, but you have to basically believe in the movie and finance the first part, which maybe cost you $400,000, and then you might get the big investor from USA or wherever it comes from. But that head sponsor, as we know, that's the sponsor that has to be here, and that's the key to make a good feature film. So you can go in two directions. You can say, okay, the independent version obviously always works easier because you need less money, and you can be successful. And actually, as he showed very nicely, that it goes to the cinema and you come next. But what I think here, the lacking part is really the foundation from whoever is the background. Now we have Netflix here, we have OSN here, and so on and so forth. Now we have to make them believe in that we actually can deliver the same quality, which we can, because even the teams that are here, they're working on Fast and Furious or whatsoever, as for sure second units or third units. But at the end of the day, we have the knowledge, let's use it.
Well, I also think the infrastructure is here. The whole, it can be a success story from a perspective of the audience, like you said. But in the case of Harjwala, it was also a success story because it aired on Netflix. It was in cinemas. So I think the business side to it, and you mentioned it quite well here, is the business side to it. The business side to a success story is also quite important.
Yeah, at the end, see, the networking has to start. We have everywhere small groups, and I actually never met him, and I'm pretty sure we will do something together in the future. But
well, you heard it here first.
So, but see, the thing is, this network has to start at some point, and I'm pretty sure that Omar, that aside from that has all these roles, also is a very nice creative person, will make that happen, that we will have from the TV Commission some arms where we say, okay, here's the forum, guys, meet somehow.
I mean, following on from what you were saying.
I gave you a task.
Thank you. All right, put me on the spot. Yes, I mean, traditionally the Dubai Film TV Commission is seen as, a body which is a regulator, right? Review scripts, issue permits. But the reason that my department exists is to sort of do the opposite of that, to find ways to foster the creative community, to find ways to support the creative community. Not always in traditional means, not always direct investment. It's more about making forums and opportunities for people to meet, to connect. Similar to my content, of course, today. We also did VidXP last year, which is focused on digital content creators, people from across the region, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Kuwait, UAE, over 100 different content creators from the UK and the US as well, who got together to connect, to make content together here in the UAE and to sort of develop Dubai creative ecosystem. I think where there's work to be done, and that's both for myself, that's for the industry at large, it's not a task that any one entity or one individual can do, is to develop what Rodrigo was talking about, which is a more consistent, obvious, sustainable mechanism for people to, or for creative people to meet the money people, right? To meet the people who can actually fund and invest. And that's it.
For the creative was here, the money was him.
No. I need to bring the person too. I'm not money somewhere out there. That's something I agree, and myself as a sometimes former producer and director, that was always something that was a challenge. It's something that will continue to be a challenge. It's not going to change overnight, but that type of forum, these types of gatherings with a more consistent forum where people can connect and take their creative idea and find someone who can turn it into business, whether it's through distribution, whether it's through just production itself. That's something which is still lacking, something that definitely needs to be developed. To that mind, actually, I think, personally speaking as well, but hopefully everybody else out there, Ali, I would love to hear more about, Harjwala 1 in particular. It was not easy for you. Harjwala 2, obviously, you already had the success of 1 to show, but how did you even get Harjwala 1 made?
First of all, I think I just want to touch on the point of to create hub. When Dubai TV and Film Commission come, in picture, also in the 244, they create like hub for filmmakers to come and to join. When we make first Hajwala one, first of all we try, as I mentioned, we concentrate in the content to be very local content, because as I said, to compete with other stories or other movies from other parts is not easy. It's not easy job to do. So we try to concentrate in something for the audience is something strange. They want to see the stories from the country itself. They want to see clothes, for example, from the content. People they need to listen to the jokes from this area. That's and inspired us to make this story and make this kind of movie, and we try to be different than other movies. Otherwise, if we produce something similar to others, nobody will come to you. This is I think the secret behind the
I wanted to also touch base, since I have the three of you, I wanted to open a discussion that is actually in everyone's minds, the Saudi market. Everyone, I think, wants to, everyone knows that the Saudi market has opened up to the world. Everyone wants to know to what extent. Everyone is basically preparing for what's there to come. So from your perspective, from your angle, what are the trends, or is there a secret formula to approach the market in Saudi?
The Saudi market, I think, is a good opportunity for the filmmakers in the region, because again, the target audience in Saudi is similar to the target market in the UAE. So I think it will be more production in the future. I think within 3 to 5 years, the capacity of Saudi market will be similar to the UAE, maybe more than this. And the population is very high in the Saudi, and also the appealing for our content in Saudi is very high. So I think it's a promising market. Before we said that our content cannot reach to the external market. But with Saudi market, I think the production cycle will be more. A lot of producer will come to produce, and also the funds will come, and the investor will be happy to spend in Saudi market and in the film in the region general.
Omar, if I can ask you from a government body perspective, would you be looking at any sort of co-productions between the UAE market and the Saudi market? And I think Ali wants to know as well.
Look, I think that in general, when you're looking at sort of government, direct government involvement in the industry, whether it's here in the UAE or otherwise, I think more and more the direction is to find ways to prop up individuals, private businesses, people who will continue and sustain to make this type of content long term, and find ways to put them in the best position to make the most amount of money, and then have the government start taking a more hands-off approach. I know it's a bit different from what's been done up to this point, but I think that makes sense in terms of long-term sustainability. The Saudi market is absolutely a game changer, as Adi was saying. You have suddenly an entirely new audience that you have access to sell to. You have an audience which is hungry for content, audience which, recent studies, I think 75% of them wanted Arabic language content first, not English. So even as they open more and more cinemas, there's a very good chance that it will not be taken over by Marvel and Disney, and that you will still have a very receptive audience to show Arabic language content to. And as Adi said, right now they're not going to be producing enough content to meet that need or demand. There's a huge opportunity to have people step in there. I know Adi didn't say this, being modest, but I know that Hijwala 2 was something that has definitely been considered and was, I think, even supported in part because of the opportunity in the Saudi market. That's definitely something that distributors themselves, investors themselves are looking at. So if you have an Arabic language story, particularly a Gulf-focused story, this is a new opportunity for you to connect. in terms of the government, again, what we are able to do and what we continue to do is find ways to help connect with the right stakeholders. We have good relationships with the Saudi Film Council. There are Saudi productions that will be produced here in Dubai, in the coming years because they don't have that infrastructure just yet. So there will be direct production being done here as well. It is a very important relationship going forward, both for UAE-based content creators and directors and filmmakers, but also for the Saudis themselves who want to tell their own stories and connect in an authentic way that Ali was just talking about.
Rodrigo, from your perspective, how do you see the market?
I try. So what I think there's more than only the market opening. The big thing for me is, okay, first of all, we're getting 3,000 to 6,000 more cinema screens where local content can be played on. But on top of it, if we, let's say, look around the world how films are made, a big part is that now you can actually start saying, okay, we make a GCC film. Because if you, let's say, let's take a French movie, they're not always playing in France. They're playing in France, in Italy, in Germany, in England, the people traveling. And that's also something we can basically be proud of because we have landscapes here that no people know about. So even the Saudis maybe don't know that they have this area that looks actually like South Italy. So we have more places where we can film now, and we have more countries that can join together. I think it's a mistake to say if you want to produce something, you only concentrate on your own country. You should concentrate on your own region, because that's where, if you want to grow, you want to join, and then you have a joint venture feature film, and you get 3 different sources of money, and you get 3 different sources of talents and 3 different sources of industry altogether. And that's actually, I think, the way to go, that you basically raise the value, because let's say Bollywood is also not only Bollywood, it's all over India. So that example should be followed. So, and that's again, sorry, your chance to join this market, because I think Saudi is just rising up. So it's a very great opportunity for all countries that have film industry already to basically go there and build together a new nice film world. Because at the moment I don't see any Hollywood, Bollywood or ever equal anywhere. The closest one I would say is 2 for 54, and so there's a chance to build that.
Well, like I started, there are a lot of expectations from the Saudi market in general, from the audience, from the content creators, from the broadcasters there. But what is actually the reality? So if you can do a versus game, what are the expectations versus reality of the market in Saudi Arabia?
Still, the Saudi market is still in the beginning. You cannot say what the reality now at this moment. Let's test the market after say 1 or 2 years, 3 years. Until I'm not sure if I understand your question, but I think
so. Basically, we should all wait and see what happens.
Well, following on from what Ali is saying, I think it's important, like anything, there's a lot of excitement around the opportunities of Saudi Arabia, and I think it's not. I don't think it's necessarily misplaced. I think this is something which is real, it's tangible. It is a game changer. I firmly believe that, both as a creative person and obviously now representing the government. But it's also important to approach this step by step, one thing at a time. Right now, I think what Ali's doing, what any of you out there can be doing, is looking for stories that will play well in Saudi Arabia, whether you're looking for cinema primarily, or TV or film, or however you want to reach an audience. Absolutely, there is investment coming in from Netflix. There's a good chance, hopefully, we'll see more investment coming in from other streaming platforms. They filmed their first series, they wrapped their first series in Jordan, with Saudi being a huge a market and a focal point for the region, there's no reason that that would not be someplace they look to tell a story or to have content for next. And there definitely is the appetite there. In terms of films, again, if you have something that you think will play well, this is a wonderful opportunity because of the lack of competition at this moment in time. But again, it's going to be slow, but I do think that it's something.
I would say the same. It's basically, we can feel there's questioning, there's people asking for advice, but it's all in the first steps. And I will give it 2 to 3 years that this is getting the same level as we have here in the moment, and maybe then it even grows bigger. But it's just the first screens, they are not all operating yet, and so on and so forth. Once we have actually something established, they need the content to play there, and also for their private streaming platforms, they need content for that. So it will come, but it will not come, let's say, next month. It will come next year.
Okay, well, I understood. I have to invite you again in 2-3 years to have the same topic, So coming back home to the UAE, it's an established market. So from your perspective, I'm sure, and we all can agree, there are certain advantages. We can also agree there are certain challenges. So if you can tell me more about this challenges versus advantages in filming in the UAE.
Okay. So the challenges are, it's not easy to say, but at the end of the day, we are living here in a certain society which is dictated by a religion which allows certain things to do and certain things not to do, which doesn't make filmmaking, especially if you're going to say, okay, we want to tell that certain story, we have to know exactly our rules, and the process is understandable, that what we have to check out, what we can show, we can't show. The new approach, which I actually like, is that we basically say, okay, we can lift up and say, okay, we build areas where we film basically international footage on the ground here, but it's basically on a film set, so it's not playing directly in UAE. That gives us opportunities to show scenes we couldn't show before. But at the end of the day, the biggest challenge I still face is if you have a nice story, you have to always verify this against something you don't know, because there is no ruling of what's the framework which you maybe have in an American film society. You can't show that certain nipple in the middle of your body because it's not allowed. So I know I can't do this, but here it's a bit vague. Where is my edge until where I can go, and what can I show in my story and in my film, and what I can't.
Omar? I guess I'm next. Okay.
Yes.
Well, first to address Rodrigo's point, the guidelines, general guidelines for the country are governed by the National Media Council. For any script, anything that comes through the country to film, it is reviewed by the National Media Council, and if it's filming in Dubai, is often reviewed by Film and TV Commission as well. It is true there is not a strict list of guidelines. However, the way that it works now is that you send in your script. Based on that particular script, you will get feedback telling you that this is going to work, this might be a bit challenging, problematic. Particularly the Dubai Film and TV Commission, whether it's an international production or local production, the attitude and the approach that we hope to achieve is that, okay, this might not work, maybe this is culturally inappropriate through no fault of the filmmaker, just a lack of knowledge, but here's how maybe we could play the scene to make it work. And it's very much a conversation. It's not a, this does not work, reject. Because that is discouraging to production and discouraging to the industry. Now, no one gets it right 100% of the time, but I mean, I can say that is the intention, that is the desire, which is to find ways to make things work for this market, even if the subject matter can be challenging sometimes. And we do recognize that it is not as easy or free, in that regard as maybe some other markets are. But we hopefully the actual production itself is straightforward.
There is a lot of challenge, but let me concentrate on one. One of the issues here, let's say, the talents or the human resources. We have a lot of filmmakers who take this as a hobby. It's not like professional work or job, because again we have problem in the fund and the financial things for aspect of the movie. Because we don't have a real industry, film-making industry here, you cannot see specialized people in different areas. Also, I see there's some absence of owner of filmmaking industry here in the UAE. There is a lot of, let's say, activities here and there. There's no one can gather all this effort in under one umbrella or one. If there is very clear strategy, maybe in the country, we can boost this filmmaking more, and we can build more human resources. We come back to the Saudi market. I think this opportunity now to have more cooperation between GCC countries. We have different resources in different countries. I think this can work together to reduce something for the Saudi market, because as Omar also said, the people here, they like or they hungry for the local content. So if we can develop our resources, human resources here more, I think we can reach to something good for the industry.
One very true point you said is that we're lacking at the moment on talent itself. Out of a simple reason, we don't have enough theaters, so the actors actually have no job. The main resources at the moment we have are literally actors that came with their husband or with their wife here, and that's then our luck that they actually stay, because the spouse has a job. Because the actor itself needs a theater to play in, and we have nice stars like The Junction, Joint, and so on and so forth, but we don't have the actual big theater where, let's say, a proper actor would be home and say, oh, I'm moving to UAE because I have that theater there, and we can use him then for our feature films. There's no reason for him at the moment to come here. Only if he is let's say enthusiast, but not really a professional actor would run out of jobs very easily. Yeah. But let's say if you make more films, then they have also something different.
Well, so what I got from this is that both Ali and Rodrigo are facing more or less the same issues, the same struggles. So it kind of leads me to the next question, which I'll address to you directly. Or firstly, Omar, is there a need for a more or a stronger centralized creative community in the region, or in the country, or in Dubai?
I think something I've heard over the years, and perhaps you've heard this as well, what Rodrigo was just saying is that there's not a creative community in the UAE, or there doesn't exist, or it's too small, it's not here. And I think that's to a certain degree false. I think what is happening is what you said, and certainly what Ali said, which is that up until this point, unfortunately, there have not been enough opportunities for them to do it as a full-time thing. So it ends up being a hobby, right? Part of the reason that we're seeing the explosion on social media and digital platforms is because that is something you can do while having another career. Some of our top content creators in the country still can't do it as a full-time job. There's the people who have 1 million plus subscribers, 500,000 subscribers, are still working as a dentist or a doctor or something in their spare time, because it's not something which they can find enough of income or get enough of income to sustain it. So yes, there's certainly a need for finding ways to connect people better. There's certainly a need to finding ways to offer them more opportunities to create. And that is again why things like Saudi Arabia and that market is so important, because then there is now a potentially a real audience that you can make money off of if you're making longer form content. That's also why, to Rodrigo's point, it is important to think about your audience. It 100% is the right thing if you're making content for the region to make something authentic and focused. But the wonderful thing about the UAE Dubai is you also have 200 plus nationalities here who can also make authentic content for different audiences. That's something that we shouldn't forget. Arabic language content is always important, and there's a massive opportunity there. But Hindi, Tamil, Urdu, Tagalog, English, French, Spanish, those communities, those nationalities, those creative people are also here in this country. And we have, again, the talent, we have the infrastructure, we have the ability to create content for those markets. There's no reason that we have to limit ourselves. If you have an idea in those languages, there's a lot of fascination, there's a lot of engagement around the city of Dubai, around the UAE, in global markets. If you're making something compelling, if you can get it out there online, there is an audience for it. So that's something else to consider and think about, not to limit ourselves to, it's just for television, or this is just for streaming. I think that's something that we've done a bit more up to this point. If you're in TV, you're only in TV. If you're in film, you're only in film. If I'm in film, I make short films from this film festivals only. And now it's what idea do I have, what content do I have, how can I get it out on as many platforms as possible, reach the largest audience possible, and find all these different revenue streams that can help sustain my career. And yes, our role should be very much to find these creative people, bring them together, and help point them in the right direction, help develop meaningful relationships, whether it's with platforms like Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, or otherwise, or with broadcasters, or distributors, or cinema chains, to be able to get their stories told and to find the investment for those stories. That's absolutely something we need more of, and we hope to do more of that.
One approach we actually try to do together is that we try to found something called Film Incubator, which would be based in five in what is this thing called now? Before it was RPZ, now it's called Dubai Production City.
Yes, DPC, Dubai Production City. Yes.
Okay, Dubai Production City, and I think that's something what can actually fill this gap. That you basically find a platform which has a forum online where people can talk to each other and they can meet at a certain point, and then you can actually start growing and producers meet filmmakers, meet enthusiastic people that just have money and say, hey, I want to do a feature film, why not? So I think that's a good start point to actually grow stuff, and so I can meet Ali early and don't have to go to a podium discussion anytime.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all the insights. Thank you for coming to Dubai International Content Market. It's been a pleasure. If there are any questions from the audience. Sure.
Hi, this is Kircher from Abu Dhabi, originally from Tokyo. It's kind of million-dollar question, but why is it so difficult to get funding in this region, especially in UAE? When you have a quite good track record, why is it?
Why difficult? Because as we said, I'm talking about the local movies. Because the market size or the return for investment is very low. That's why, and we need to produce in very low budget. That's why there's a lot of interest for the investor to invest in, can say very small market here. And also there's a competition from movies produced from outside, like Bollywood, the very big movies. That's why it's the issue.
We don't have a film city at the moment, so that's what we actually addressed before. That you need this kind of section which is in progress. It's getting better, but it is not there that you basically say, like in Hollywood, you go to the studio and you just say, here I have this movie. Maybe you get it, maybe not. That facility in that kind of capacity doesn't exist. there's ways to do it, but it's not that you say, okay, I can get a full funding at a certain location. That process is not there.
And also other problem that the local movies cannot be easy distributed outside, because either the content or the story is very local, or the ability or capacity of distributor to take the movies outside not that much good, and also maybe the acceptance from the external market of the movie. Maybe in the future this will be changed by develop the content to be acceptable by different places.
You have basically two wings here. One is if you, let's say, if you the sponsor wants a local content, but then he figures out after a while that the local content doesn't really give him the money back. And if you make international content, then the local sponsor doesn't want to sponsor it because he said then they can just make an international movie with a Hollywood team. So there's a bit of a learning process, because I think you can make a beautiful movie here, as Omar said. We basically have like a little America here. We have so many different nations. You can do the same kind of movie here, but localized towards our culture. Because for sure, a live in Dubai is completely different than the live in New York, than the live in LA. So there is potential to make an international movie, which I'm pretty sure will gain a lot of success, because the world we're living here is fascinating for everyone. If we live here in Dubai and we have a visitor, you can see in the eyes of the visitor how his reaction. So if you build a movie around only that effect already, just show a normal life of the craziness here, which is fascinating for everyone. I'm pretty sure you will get a worldwide success with it.
I think we have another question from the audience.
I believe you touched on the point that I wanted to talk, which is why the content is not traveling. It's not traveling. I believe one of the barriers is the language itself. Everybody wants to see what's going on in UAE. Everybody loves UAE, dreams of coming to UAE. But I think it's maybe our fault not transferring or using another language to make this content fly. So maybe that will solve two issues. Maybe creating two versions of everything and dubbing these stuff and make it fly. That's the only way to do it, because otherwise our dialect, I'm Arab, it's too heavy for the West. So unless they hear it with their language, it's not going to work. And in Europe, everything is dubbed. So I believe that's going to be one of the solutions.
It's a very valid point. I think I think you should, let's say, if we go international, we have to produce obviously in English, because even in Europe, let's say, the dub process is very common in Germany, in Sweden, and Norway. All the Scandinavians do. But for example, in Netherlands, France, they don't like dubs. They make subtitles, and it still works. I think when we go for English, and the idea, let's say we make the version, the GCC version with the Arabic language, and we do an English version as well. I think you have to shoot it twice, to be honest, because I think those both languages are not used to dubbing. If you want to have that original and you want to actually sell it to GCC, you want that person to talk in Arabic to you.
True, but that's two versions. I mean, the original is going to be always in Arabic, and also the missed scene that you're talking about, that you need in other markets, then you can inject it in the international version.
Yeah, it's, we're talking about that we're not getting funded the first movie. We now shoot two for one. I'm not sure if that makes it easier.
Just to offer some thoughts on what you were saying there. I think I've certainly seen this. I think there's a challenge between trying to create about a film for an international audience, or there's a disconnect between trying to create a film for an international audience and for a local audience. And you should have your expectations set. And I don't necessarily know if it works to translate one into another. I've certainly seen films that, in Arabic that, have come to the cinema here and feel like they were trying to be ex-Hollywood film, but in Arabic. And they have actors from all over the region, and they feel strange and weird, and you don't really know where they're set, and it doesn't connect to an Arabic audience, and it doesn't connect to an international audience, because the language barrier is still there. I think one of the reasons that, Ajwada, excuse me, worked so well is because it was to a very specific audience, and made it a budget where it would be successful enough for a small but focused, passionate audience. I think that is one type of film that should be invested in and will continue to be invested in. And long term, hopefully that grows to, a level where it is enough of a financial return, maybe with the Saudi market, that's a very successful industry. There are some projections in less than 20 years that the Saudi film market could be a top 10 film market. That's obviously on the optimistic side of things, but that is something that people are considering. The other thing being international productions, which are based out of the city in multiple languages. I think, again, it's more about finding those projects with a very specific, dedicated audience. Those are the things that are going to be more successful and get noticed. It's when you try to do something for everyone, and we have done that before, I guess that's why I'm mentioning it, that I feel like it ends up connecting with nobody, and then it's more of a hindrance to the industry than a success.
Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you for your time, Ali, Omar, Rodrigo. Thank you to the audience. Have a nice market, and don't forget about the afternoon networking session, which will be behind you from 5:30 till 6:30.